check, good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and I have found yet another fantastic guest here in Canada to bring on the air for all of you listeners. Today we have Eric Martin coming to us from Walter Surface Technologies. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Max?
Well, it's been a very, very busy week, busy month, busy life. I don't know what the I'm just running is basically what I do. How about yourself?
No, it's busy. I mean, we're going through a shutdown season here in New Brunswick. So with the Walter products and stuff, it keeps me going during the seasons for sure.
Well, and Walter is Walter. So we'll get to what Walter is because, if anyone's touched a welder or a grinder or is in the industry, they've either used or worked with probably some type of Walter product. But let's start with where the little tidbit information you already gave. You're in where are you located right now?
Yeah, I'm based out of Moncton, New Brunswick. And so I'm a territory manager for Walter. So I take care of southern New Brunswick, north, east New Brunswick. And so I travel quite a lot, and originally from northwestern New Brunswick, Edmundston. But so anyways, life goes on and you make some moves. So now I'm in Moncton.
Well, it sounds like it wasn't very far of a move. Like, I mean, it only takes a few hours to get from one end to the other of that province.
Well, it takes 4 hours and a half.
4 hours.
There's a nice highway. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Saskatchewan, so 4 hours gets me basically next door. That's all, it's pretty big spaces out here. So
Yeah. No, I've been out west. I know how. I've worked at when I was younger. I worked out in Alberta for doing seismic in southern Saskatchewan and southern Alberta. So I've been
awesome.
through the area. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about your career. Before you got into the Walter game, and working as a rep for Walter. What is it that you did in your earlier life? I heard through the grapevine from a little birdie that you were a welder.
Yeah. So basically, in high school, I'll start in high school. Basically, I don't know how it is out west, but here in Eastern Canada, a lot of high schools promote going to university and colleges and stuff like that. So that I followed that trend, and I went to do my bachelor's in business administration here at the University of Moncton. And so when I went there, I accumulated a big student loan, and then I said something had to happen. I had to make a move and try to pay that loan off, and it was kind of hard getting a good job at that point. It was 2004, 2005, and so I said, okay, I'm going to make a move. I come from a family that my father's a gas fitter, my uncle electrician, another uncle's a boilermaker, and so on. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go try and do a trade and go out to Fort Mac and do like the rest of the guys and try to make a bit of money. But at that point, I lived in Montreal, and my uncle was like, hey, why don't you just go do your course as a Boilermaker? So I was getting ready to go out west, but then I found out that they gave the Boilermaker class in Montreal. So I went into there, did the training, and then got into the union. And the union trained me for welding, got my tickets and all that, and started doing, so worked as a Boilermaker for 11 years. And so within the scope of a Boilermaker, there's a lot of welding. I mean, a lot of stick welding, pressure vessel welding, pipe, tube. And so I did a lot of training. And the main training that got me a lot of work with this was the CWB ticket, just the stick welding one. That's the one that you needed to get to a job and
even
say
on
that
site,
you were a welder. Yeah, exactly. So, so that's how it started. And doing Boilermaker, I worked as a foreman for a while and did all sorts of things.
So let's back up a little bit. Like, first of all, for the listeners across Canada, people always think, especially out in the West, where we're maybe not as well educated about what happens in the East, and vice versa. Like, we're like two halves of a country that don't really talk sometimes. You
Yeah.
know, we always think of Quebec as being the only French speaking province, right? We're always like Quebec, that's the French speaking province. Everyone else speaks English, but that's not true, is it?
No, no. In New Brunswick, my primary language is French,
Hmm.
so I'm bilingual. But yeah, so New Brunswick has a lot of French community, especially up north, New Brunswick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think if don't correct me if I'm wrong, but New Brunswick actually has French as an official language.
Yes, both the languages are official here.
Yeah, so you say you go to Montreal. For people your age, I would put you in mid 30s, late 30s, maybe.
Late 30s. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Okay, early 40s then. I don't know, somewhere in there, but
Yeah,
yeah.
early 40s. Yeah.
So in your age group, is there a lot of movement between French speaking areas like New Brunswick to Quebec or New Brunswick to other French speaking areas in Ontario? Does that seem like a good transition? Because if we're in Saskatchewan and I wanted to take a course in Quebec, I'd be at a loss, right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't get taught any French out here, barely, right?
Yeah, no, there is quite a lot of movement. A lot of people up north, either they'll come to Moncton.
Mhm.
Moncton's known to be pretty much bilingual. Either they'll come here, or they'll go to Quebec City, Montreal, even Ottawa is a good place that people go to.
Mhm.
And yeah, you see a lot of traveling between those areas.
Before you joined the Boilermakers in Montreal, had you dabbled or had you welded at all? Did you kind of understand what it was, or were you like, I just need a trade. Uncle said Boilermaker. I'm in.
Yeah, no, it's um, to be honest, like at home, my father had a garage, and then I dabbled here and there. I mean, I was pretty good at like working with tools and stuff, but I
Mhm.
mean, he showed me how to weld once on a MIG welder, and I was like, oh, it's all right. I don't need to learn it. I found no need for it. But then once I got, into the Boilermakers and stuff, then I found out, well, if I can weld, I can get more jobs. I get more
Mhm.
jobs. I get more money if I get, so I made it a goal for myself just to practice a lot. Like the first course that we took was the stick welding. Well, we had little boots, and so I'd stay in the boot and just welded and welded and welded. I didn't come out of that booth to socialize. I just stayed in there. I wanted to be good at it because I wanted to make sure that I was a good welder on job, and they would request me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So that was and when you're good at something, it's a good feeling, right?
It's easy to sink into that rabbit hole. You're like, okay, this is good. And you see your own progress, right? You see, like, I'm getting better.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's a good reward when somebody looks at your work and they're like, "Oh wow, that looks good," So
Hmm.
it's really rewarding. Yeah.
Now, as you entered the Boilermaker, as all the unions and apprenticeship programs have, there's a stream, right?
Yeah.
you got I believe the Boilermakers are 4 years, and or is it three?
It, it's well, you got to make 6,000 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's different in every province with
Hmm.
every local, but in Quebec, I think the schooling was 1,200 hours. But after that, to obtain the level two apprenticeship, you needed 2,000. So, but those hours in class counted.
Counted.
So
Yeah.
I only needed like 800 hours. So, and then you get to level 4, then you have your journeyman card, and then you can challenge the red seal.
And that's a lot of things that in Quebec they don't really push the red seal outside of the unions. Like if you're just going through the normal schooling system, there is thousands of welders in Quebec that get what I believe is they get their PHQ, I believe is what they get, or an equivalency basically of the highest level for their province, but they don't go and get the interprovincial journey person. But the unions tend
No.
to, yeah.
Yeah, and some locals have special agreements between each other. I know
Hmm.
for a while, I'm not sure if it's like that today, but for a while with 146 in Alberta, they had an agreement with 271 in Quebec, and you didn't need the red seal. But I think today it's becoming mostly they want it, like
Hmm.
they request it that you have a red seal. Yeah.
Now, in the Boilermakers, like many unions, there's different paths you can take within the Boilermakers.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a welder to be a Boilermaker. You can. There's other jobs, but
Yeah.
does every Boilermaker know how to weld a little bit, or how does that? How do those paths work within the Boilermakers?
Well, in school, like one of the I would say the standard, they give stick welding classes. You need to
Mhm.
take the welding class, good or not. You need to take it so you have a basis, right?
Mhm.
And well, some of them don't like it, so on the job site they'll just say, no, I don't want to weld, so we'll put them as a rigger, a fitter, anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you obviously wanted to become a welder. You followed
Yeah.
this path. Did you follow through to the journey person as fast as you could and get that red seal in your pocket?
Yeah. So basically, I don't have a red seal for welding. It's a red seal for Boilermaker.
Mm-hmm.
But within that scope, I do have my tickets. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. And did you like it? Were you a happy
Yeah.
Boilermaker?
Yeah. Well, you know what, Max? It's a great lifestyle. I mean, I was young and stuff when I started, and you're traveling, you're meeting people, you're you're so you- you're a lot, like, say on a shutdown, you're on a shutdown sometimes 60, 70 hours a week. So those people at work become kind of your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing more of them that you're seeing your actual family. So you create good relationships. I mean, I've got good buddies that I met there at work sites and stuff. And you know what? It's great. It's a great lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm being a little bit facetious too because my dad was a Boilermaker, so I
Oh yeah.
watched I watched him, in his circles, but he ended up working in shops most of his life because there is
Okay.
that side of it, right? People always think that the Boilermakers, the only jobs are on the road. But that's not necessarily true. You could be a Boilermaker within a company, within a shop. So like, he would be working on boiler tubes, on, compression units and stuff like that full time in shops, and he did that for years. You know, did you get any of those like steady Eddie jobs within a company, or were you mainly on the road?
Yeah, I got a few times. I got steady jobs in Montreal. I traveled, but I was lucky being in Montreal doing it because it kept me around the city. And I did work for, I don't know, 3, 4 years for a company steady, but it was at tank farms and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, repairing tanks and stuff. It wasn't in a shop. I've never worked in a shop. I know in Edmonton and places like that, they do have shops, but I've never lived that lifestyle.
You said you became a foreman and a supervisor. How's that process work? How do you climb that ladder? How do you get those jobs?
Well, for instance, the company I'm talking about, after being there for 3, 4 years, they built there was a confidence, right? They could trust me and stuff like that, and they knew what I was able to do. And on 3, 4 jobs, they asked me to be a foreman because they knew they could rely on me. So, and yeah, so I think you just need to be proud of your work and just be um, yeah, like
Ambitious, organized, all the yeah.
organized, ambitious. Yeah, you need to see the work ahead as well. That's what they're looking for. So
Hmm.
if you put your mind into it, and then okay, you got to prepare all the tools for this job or whatever. Well, you got to think about it. You got to visualize it. Okay, I'm gonna have 5 guys. Okay, they'll be okay grinding or whatever. I got to
Hmm.
prepare grinders and all that stuff. So you
Yeah.
got to see the stuff in advance, right?
So you did this for 11 years.
Yeah.
Was What was the hard stop? What was the thing that made you pull out of this Boilermaker life, which sounded like it was
Yeah.
fantastic?
Yeah, no, it's great. And but the thing is, I got kids after a while. I got married. I got kids, and
You make it sound like you caught a cold, like you went to the supermarket and you got kids, like.
yeah. No, it's great. But yeah, so when we had kids, we were in Montreal, and we just found having kids in the big city was just hectic. And me and my wife, we didn't grow up in the city, and it's fun. Like in the city of Montreal, you don't have kids, you're just you and your wife, you have fun, you make friends, you go out. It's a great city. But with the kids and traffic and stuff, we just found it really hard. And without having our support system there, like we're like, okay, let's move back to New Brunswick, have the slower paced lifestyle, and that's what happened. So we moved here again back, and yeah. So from then, after a while, I was doing the run, so I would travel to Quebec City, and went to Fort Mac and stuff like that. And anyways, so after a while, then COVID hit. Then
Oh yeah.
that changed a lot of things, like just going across province. You needed to just self isolate for 2 weeks without pay and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna entertain that idea. So I just basically, for a while, I just had my own welding thing going on here. So
Mhm.
that got me by during COVID, and thank God I had that, that knowledge. So that kept me going, and yeah. So, and after that, I applied for this job here at Walter, and I got the job, and I was pretty happy about that because I knew the products. Like you said, anybody that welded knows about the Walter product.
Now, I'm curious about this little in between spot that you just jumped over. What were you doing? What was your shop? What did you build? What did you sell? What was it?
Yeah, I just had my a truck and a welder on my truck, and I just
Mhm.
go around. A lot of Moncton's not really an industrial place. I just basically modified containers, like people would, modify containers to build cottages and stuff like that. I did that. I did some, racks for quads and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
was enough to keep you busy during the crazy
yeah,
COVID season.
yeah. I did that and a bit of house like renovations for one of my buddies. So
Oh yeah.
with the welding and that I was okay.
Did you have any thoughts of maybe doing that longer term or growing that business?
It's hard to get, especially in the city that's not industrial. It's hard to these business here are already well established, and so it's kind of hard to go compete against people that are well established like that.
Yeah.
So
Now I'm curious.
having a business is a different beast by itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. Like you gotta have the heart and the stomach to
Yeah,
run a
yeah.
business. It's tough.
And the time, because
Mhm.
while I was doing that, like I was doing shutdown hours. You know what I mean? I was going at
Mhm.
it for 70, 80 hours a week, but I wasn't getting the shutdown pay. You know what I mean?
I do. I do. 100% know what you mean. Now,
Yeah.
in the beginning, I'm curious, just if I can rewind the clock, where when you went to university for your business admin degree, which for our age groups, I'm a little bit older than you, like 90% of the people I know got a business admin degree. Like everyone went to
Yeah,
school for business admin. And most of
exactly.
them weren't able to find good work for years, if not decade, in their
Yeah.
actual, like they all kind of had to go back to university for something else because they had so
Yeah.
much trouble finding work. What was
Yeah.
your plan with your business admin? Like were you thinking working for a large company or starting a business, which then you ended up doing? Like, what was your initial plan? How did that fit in?
The thing in high school is that they told us, not they told us, it was like kind of an
Recommendation?
idea that if you go to university, you'll make a lot of money, you'll be okay. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, so I went there and I bit on that idea. And I was like, okay, I just need to go to university, finish this up, and I'll make a lot of money right away when I come out. But that wasn't the issue. Like you said, there's a lot of people that had the business degree back when I graduated,
Mm-hmm.
anyways. So the jobs that you got, I think I started, first job was like $13 or $14 an hour. And then you have a student debt on that, and you need to pay probably a car payment, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
have any car, right, on that debt. So I wasn't seeing the,
The
like I would have
return.
paid that debt. Yeah, it wasn't fast. And if somebody would have told me in high school that, oh, you could go make a trade, or you could go this and you'll get a job and you'll do well and stuff. Like when I went to Boilermaker school, there was some kids in there, they're 18, 19 years old. Well, they started great. Like, I mean, they got out of there. They were in the union like me. They were making, I don't know, back then it was 20 something dollars an hour,
Mm-hmm.
which was $10 more than what I was making with a bachelor in business. So
And no
that was kind
debt.
of, And no debt, exactly. And plus the government back then gave you, I don't know, like $2,000 per each level
Mhm.
of apprenticeship that you gain, right? So I mean, if somebody would have told me about that, maybe I wouldn't have gone to university. But anyways, everything in life happens for a reason. Now I think with my business background, I do get to and now in my job that I have, I do use some knowledge of what I've learned in there.
And that's kind of what I wanted to bring out in this story is sometimes. So I'm not against university. I love university. I'm taking university classes right now. Like I like it for the knowledge that I learn, just because I like to learn. But I think we have the message backwards to kids, because what I've learned now is that you can take university till you're 80 years old.
Yeah.
Sitting and reading a book and learning and going to class or learning stuff from university, there's no time limit on that. But there is a time limit on trades. You
Yeah.
can't go out and do the same thing as a 22-year-old that you can as a 66-year-old or a 44-year-old. There's like a prime money making window for the trades where you can just crush it and establish
Yeah.
yourself for life. So
Exactly.
if we told all kids, you have to do a trade, like not a choice, you have to do a trade out of high school for 2 years. And then if you don't like it, go to university. But now you have a skill. And if
Yeah.
anything happens, you can always just fall back on that skill and finish it out. Or, 3 years for a Red Seal, you're set for life. A Red Seal is good for life, like a degree.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
if you did that and then you could go to university with money, not get in
Yep.
debt, take your time, have your kids, get your degree, and then do whatever the hell you want. But
Exactly.
we kind of do it opposite, because when I started teaching welding, I had lots of university grads, engineering grads, education grads, social work grads, psychology grads, all these people with degrees coming to be a welder now in their mid 20s because they don't make any money and they're sick of being broke. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's the exact same story. It's like, well, they should have gotten into the trades first and then done the degree later,
Yeah. Exactly. It's like if in high school trades are looked down upon. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But the other thing is, like, at 17 years old, who knows what they want to be in life,
That's right.
right? It's kind of sometimes I think about it. I say to myself, I should have just taken a year off and just really think about my life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
What do I want to do, right? But you don't know at that age, so you just follow somebody else's what the school counselor, is that what they're called there?
Yeah.
You do some tests and they tell you, oh well, you're good to go to university, so you should go to university, right?
Yeah. Now your parents, your family, after you went to university and got this degree, and then said, you know what, I'm going to Montreal to be a Boilermaker. What did they think
Yeah.
about the idea?
Well, I was already in Montreal. Before I got into Boilermaker, I was working for Telus, a telecommunication company, and that's when I got sick, and then I decided to make the move to Boilermaker. But my dad was like, yeah, you sure? And because for him, he's a gas fitter. He was like, oh yeah, like he was proud his son, right?
Mhm.
Went and did the university, which he didn't do, and stuff like that. And but I told him, hey, I'm going into the trading. He's like, you're sure? And then right. But hey, he was no, he was okay with it and stuff. Yeah.
That's good. All right, well let's take the break now because I feel like the story is about to transition into the Walter world now, right? So we'll take a quick minute break here with our sponsors, and we'll be back here with Eric Martin from Walter Surface Technologies and a previous or forever Boilermaker. You never stop being a Boilermaker. So, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at CWBAssociation.org.
And we are back on the CWB Association podcast. I am Max Ceron. We have Eric Martin here coming to us from New Brunswick. He's telling us, he has told us about his journey as a Boilermaker and that he enjoyed it and loved it and everything was awesome, but he got the kids. Once he got the kids, then it was back home to New Brunswick to be with the family. And then COVID. And, you know, then it was very difficult to work, especially the type of jobs where you had to move and travel. Now, you said you applied for Walter, but why? How? You know, was it just an ad in the paper, LinkedIn? You know, how did you fall into this job or find this job?
Well, I had applied during COVID. I had applied at the beginning, and my buddy was doing the territory management. He had gotten another job, and he told me, well, you know, there's a place if you want to apply. I know you'd be a good guy for it. He says you know the product and stuff. So I did apply, but I applied late, and so I didn't get the job then. So then I did my thing. But 2 years after, COVID was kind of going on the down low, like it was calming down, and then I applied. Like I just started in March, so I applied again, and I talked to the director, and so we spoke and stuff, and got the job.
So what is the title? What is the job that you started in March?
Territory manager.
So territory manager. And then what do you
Yep.
manage in your territory?
Well, I make sure that I deal, like if there's issue with the products, I go there. I do an investigation on what happened, making sure that the products quality is good and the people. And I do training. I do safety training, say community colleges and stuff. I go give safety seminars to the students, and I take care of the distributors, making sure that they are all aware of all the products that we have and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it.
So what was it like getting hired at Walter? You know, day one, it's like, hey, welcome to the team. Then they hand you this book that's this thick and say, learn all the products, or, you know, what's the training program like because there's general knowledge of product, but then there's specific knowledge that you need to know, right?
Oh yeah. And there, like for me in the field, I only knew about the abrasive side of Walter. They use a lot of it in the field, but there's tooling, and then there's the chemical side of it, and then they also have the PPE now. So it was a lot to learn, and so they got me to go to Montreal for total, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks. So every week I was there, I was learning about every different categories that they had. So they had a really good training program, and so 5 weeks training, and then still I'm home and stuff. But if I have questions, they gave me like I know the product manager, so I'm able to connect with the product managers themselves, and find out more information if I need, because we're always learning, right, Max? You can never know everything, but I mean, as long as they gave me the resources where to find the answers, right?
And as a representative of the product and a former welder, and they say the worse welder you are, the more you know about grinding products, but you know
that's not true.
So do you have to be careful not to push your favorites, or is it okay for you to push your favorites, being like, hey, when I was in the field, this was the disc that worked for me, or this was the product, because I know I've used thousands and thousands of these discs because I kept getting porosity in my welds or something, are you allowed to do that personal push of certain products, or are you supposed to be just like, no, this is everything, pick what you want?
Well, I mean, push the different items that we have, or different brands
of your Walter stuff.
Oh yeah, I can push whatever I think is necessary for the end user to to perform the way they want, right? So because I've been a welder before, I have a good grasp of knowledge to know, okay, well, this is what you should be using, and the thing is, when I was in Montreal, all I've used was Walter products. in Montreal, they're really strong on the Walter products at the refinery, at the tank farms and stuff. So I got a good grasp on how to use them, how to use the product and stuff, and that's where my knowledge comes in handy when I'm talking to other customers.
And it's very interesting how territories work, because I had someone very recently just say to me, "Hey, we should buy some of these discs," and it was Walter, and they said because that's the only discs that gets used in our industry. And in industries that I come from, that's not true. There's other brands that we use for, right? So it just depends where you are in the country, who's local, who has the best territory manager. Sometimes it's the manager themselves that do a better job of selling their product than the other guy, right? So
Yeah.
So it's interesting how some areas have a grasp, and you said like Montreal, Walter's very strong. That I worked in some large manufacturing companies out in Saskatchewan that you couldn't find a Walter product anywhere. It was always some other brand. What do you do if as a sales representative for this company, when you hear about a company that's not using Walter? Do you make sure you stop by and drop off some discs and do the talk? And
oh yeah, that's one of my targets for sure. I want to stop in. I want to show them the value. So what I do when I have time here, I test out the disc, like the competitor disc, and I just make sure, like, and I'm being honest, like when I'm grinding or cutting, like say I'm testing cutting wheels, well, I'll cut flat bar and I'll see how many cuts I can make out of it. And then I'll use a competitor and then I'll do the same thing. And I want to compare, okay, if I price every cut per the price on cuts, then you get to see really the apples to apples, right? Because sometimes you'll get a cheaper disc at maybe $3 and then our disc at $6. But if you're doing twice the cuts or even triple the cuts, well, ours is cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm trying to show customers, seeing that, hey, don't just look at price, look at how you can perform with the product.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's, to be honest, because we're not specific here, that's one of the things I hear people complain about Walter products is that they're expensive. And you hear people say that they're expensive because you can get some other company's disc for much less, and then you get the Walter product and it's much more. And especially when you get to schools and training centers where the budget's real tight. You're looking at a high school, they don't got, it's a tough sell to get them to buy something expensive, even if you show them it's more cuts. But when it's a 15-year-old kid, they're abusing the discs anyways, right? So it's hard.
So that's why Walter has two brands for, let's say, abrasives. We do have the Walter line, which is the best. If you're looking at performance, that's the one that you want. Yeah. But people are just looking for price. We do have the all steel line as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, for your buck, you would be more. It's better for you to go with the Walter.
The Walter product. Now, does Walter produce their own stuff? Do they make their own stuff, or how does or do they source it? How does it work for the company?
That I'm not sure for every product, but I think they do source. I'm not sure, Max. Some I think they do source, but there's somebody from Walter there all the time for QC, and I think some of them they do manufacture for the abrasives.
In-house, yeah. What's the best selling stuff outside of the abrasives? You have all these other products that maybe people don't know about from Walter. Yeah. Everyone just thinks abrasives. What's some of the best selling stuff that you have on your table, in a typical month that's not abrasives?
It's the tooling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mag drills, annular cutters, drill bits. So we do have the Walter line of drill bits. Then we have Drillco that we own, and that's a company from the United States, and Triumph as well. So I deal a lot with tooling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And I mean, I don't know if I've ever tried a Walter drill bit. Like, I mean, you're going to have to send me a care package. You know that, right, Eric? Yeah. I'm going to need
I can hook you up, man.
Yeah. I want to play with some of these tools in my garage. I mean, I've used lots of Walter discs and there's some Walter discs that are like famous, right? Like what are some, what is some of the most, like, price aside, like the coolest, best discs Walter makes that people are like, wow?
The most popular item is, well, the item number is 11T052, and it's called a zip cut.
Mm-hmm.
Right? People know it. You don't call it a cutoff wheel. Some people will call a cutoff wheel, I'll go get the zip cut.
Yeah.
And it's not even the Walter brand, right? But our zip cut is the most popular item that we have in our line. And I did test it. Remember I was saying about the test I was doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I tried a lot of companies are coming out with ceramic based wheels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I did try a ceramic based cutoff wheel. And I remember I was in the training and I was cutting. The trick to cutting with the zip cut, you
gotta take your time.
You got to take your time and not press hard on it.
That's
if
right.
you press hard on it, you will just go up and
yeah,
that's it. So you let it go and you let it cut. And I think with that ceramic competitor, I did like 85. It was really good. Like the robot, we have robots that test, and I didn't like 30 cuts more than the robot. And then people were like, wow, that's a good wheel. And then I said, oh, just for the heck of it, I'm just going to try the 11T052 against it. It's not a ceramic. Anyway, I tried it and I did like 120 some cuts with it, and people didn't believe it. And it's not even a ceramic. I mean, that surprised me, because I thought, the hype right now in the market is just ceramic. But anyways, that 11T052 is number one for a reason, right?
Yeah, and that's I just did a grinding video with YouTube, with CWB for YouTube, and we were talking about a little bit just about the different type of discs. We didn't get into it, but we said, there are these discs now that are very popular called ceramic discs, and like which I think we were actually trying to find a Walter brand that was ceramic. Does Walter do any ceramics?
Yeah, for grinding wheels now. Yeah.
Okay, so we were we were looking around and testing them, but they say that the ceramics are better at absorbing the heat and they don't heat up as much, and that keeping the temperature lower. But I find that they don't bite the same. That they don't seem to bite the same. It's the same with like the healthy wheels, and I shouldn't say this because we all want to be healthier, but most grinding abrasives from any company in the world has some asbestos and some ugly things in them that make them not so healthy. You can buy discs that are healthy, like have asbestos free, this free, manganese free, all these things. Then you try to cut and they don't cut. Like, I mean, they're terrible to use, but they are healthy, So it's interesting to see where this goes. And Walter's a leader in abrasives. Do you see them coming out with like all types of different new products to try to be healthier, better for the air, particulates, stuff like that?
Yeah, they do have an R&D team, and they are always looking for other, to modify, to improve products and stuff like that. Make it, making sure that everything is healthy. And so, like I think 2 years ago, they came out with that ceramic wheel, but we couldn't push it out in the market because it was COVID. You couldn't go visit nobody. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people didn't know that we have it. But like you were saying, you're grinding the ceramic wheels, I find they're really aggressive. Like, when you weld and you just want to clean the flux off and get the spatter off. Yeah. You're not gonna do that with the ceramic wheel. Like the ceramic wheel will be too aggressive for it. So that's why you'll go with other kinds, just like the HP wheel, or just the not as aggressive as the ceramic. Ceramic, I find if you need a high rate removal, that's where you'll go. If you need to gouge into material, I remember one time we went to, it was a kiln, a rotating kiln, and it was stainless, and there was cracks in there everywhere. Mm-hmm. We couldn't arc gouge because the inspector was saying, okay, if you arc gouge, you're going to get it too much heat in there, and the crack's just going to crack more, right?
Yeah.
So he said you're going to have to grind, and that material was about 2-inch thick, something like that. And I remember under the kiln trying overhead grinding that crack. Well, in my head, I was like, if we would have had ceramic wheels back then, it would have been so much easier, right? Yeah. So aggressive on stainless. So, I mean, every wheel has its purpose, right?
Yeah. Now, what about the metal zip discs or cutoff wheels that are popular now? I have a brand new one in my toolbox. I haven't even tried it yet. With the diamond coat, the diamond edge, does Walter make a solid steel cutoff wheel like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
No, I haven't seen them.
I wonder how
So,
many cuts I can get out of that thing. I'm gonna have to try it out now. I might have to do a head-to-head battle in my garage.
yeah, go at it on flat bar stock, 1.5 inches by quarter, and let me know. Let me know how much. But I remember metal blades like that. I got a bad feeling with them personally because I remember we used to cut the old tank floors with this guy would come in with this big metal blade, and that thing was so noisy. So I would just assume that those metal blades are so noisy.
Yeah, you know, it's got these interesting cutouts in it, and I actually, when I looked at it, I thought those must be for sound and air because it's got holes and little like cutouts in them. So, and the idea with the metal cutoffs is that they can't explode, like they won't blow apart, which I totally
Okay.
understand why, because I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of people abuse cutoff wheels, and they don't. Like, I mean, you come at it from the side or you lean on it, and they're gonna blow up. It doesn't matter which
Yeah.
brand; they're not meant for
No.
that.
No, exactly. And that's a lot of in the safety seminars that I give. That's a big thing, eh? On our disc, there is a logo on there. It'll
Little
show you the
picture,
degree,
Mhm.
the degrees on what to, and you need to abide by that, or else you might, if you're going to get some breakage at one point if you abuse it. And now, talking about the metal blades, imagine one of those cracking up and
Oh
flying
man,
off.
that's super scary.
That would be, and a lot of people like, in the field, like the big places, you need to wear a face shield. If you're not wearing a face shield and they see you grinding without a face shield, you're off the job.
That's right.
And I'm seeing, like, right now, I go to places and people don't wear face shields. So imagine using one of those metal blades and it cracks up and it flies and you don't have your face shield.
I can't
What
even
damage that-
imagine the lack of safety on videos that people post online drives me nuts. And some of these are like major companies, no guards on their grinders, no handles, no face shields. It's like no gloves on. And it's like,
Yeah.
why? Okay, fine. Like, I mean, if you were gonna play that game and be so unsafe, do it in secret. But you're making a video. You're making a video and you're putting it online of you breaking all these rules. Like, what's that show? The Forged in Fire. The show.
Yeah.
I sent them an email. I'm like, okay, you guys are driving me crazy. Everyone's using these grinders with no shields and no guards. How, like,
Yeah.
you're on TV. You got kids watching. You got people watching, hobbyists. To be safe, like, teach them. Like, this is an opportunity. I never got a reply. They never got back to me. But but I was mad. I was like, come on, guys. You're like nationally, syndicated show on Netflix and on TV, on cable, and you're not following any safety procedures. Like, come on.
Yeah. We had a saying it for a while in the field. They said, if you have to modify a tool, you're not using the right one. Right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, if you have to remove a guard or even the handle, whatever, go get the pencil grinder or go get something else.
Yeah.
Right?
Get something that's meant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, here's a question for you. Maybe you got an answer. Depressed versus straight cutoff wheel. Which one's better?
There's I think it's just personal preference. See, I prefer the flat ones. Some people say, oh, it's the press center, but in the lab they've shown that both of them do the same amount of cut with ours anyways because of the way the hub is made. So they say you can make the same amount of cut, and maybe the press center is a bit tougher, but there's not one that's better than the other.
Oh man, people will fight you on that one. I have, I have.
If you do like
flats,
if you're like, maybe if you're grinding you're not supposed to do it though, but if you're grinding a lug, you welded a lug somewhere and you need to remove the lug, so you need to flush cut it. Maybe the depressed center will allow you to have a better angle, not to dig into the part.
Just because you can get flatter on the plate, maybe.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to do that because you got to make sure you got to make sure you're cutting at 90 degrees on the weld, so it's not advisable for apprentice to do that. I'm just joking, but no, it's maybe that would be an issue, a thing why you would want to use a depressed center.
And then what about the spin-ons? I never see those anymore. They were popular for a little while.
Yeah.
I never liked them because then you lose your top nut. The second you get a spin
Yeah.
on, you lose your top nut. And then sometimes finding a new top nut is like cost more than a dang grinder. It's like $30 for a 2-pack of nuts. It's like, come on, get out of here. But but are they still popular? They still get made? They still out there?
Yeah. Oh yeah, in Quebec, that's in where I went. They all had mostly pipe fitters use flat wheels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they mostly use the spin-on ones because it's quicker to remove and quicker to put on. And Walter does have a little accessory that you put on the grinding cord, and you just take your nut and you snap it on there for you not to lose. And I think that the accessory is like $4 or $5. It's something.
Well, that's
so
neat.
You
don't lose the nut.
Exactly. It's just the quickness to replace the disc. That's what they like about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here's another question for you from the field.
Yeah.
Do you keep the back nut on when you put on a wire wheel, or do you take the back nut off?
You keep it on. The backing of the wire wheel needs to sit on something, right? It needs to tap against something in the back. Maybe some grinders, you put the wire wheel and it taps against the back, but I doubt it. You have to leave the back nuts for it to properly sit. If it doesn't properly sit, it will vibrate. And the vibration, well, you're going to get wire breakage, which is dangerous with a wire wheel. So you're always trying to eliminate vibration.
Yeah, and it also wears out your bearings on your grinder and your brushes faster.
Yeah,
I have had that argument with 100 people who always take the back nut off and then put the wire wheel on. Two things I noticed in my life happens when you do that. Number one, it vibrates more, like you just said, and thank you for saying that. And number two, the wire wheels get jammed on and they get stuck. And then you see them with the grinder and the vise trying to hammer the stupid wire wheel off because it's stuck, because it didn't have anything to sit against, so it jammed up against the actual housing, so and then the argument from the other side is that you need to have the threading go all the way through the wire wheel spin on in order for it to be safe. But that's not true. That's in bolt world, that's not even true. Like if you talk to iron workers who are like bolt specialists, you don't need the nut to go through the bolt to go through the nut. You just need to have X amount of contact for it to be legit, right? So
you need the backing for sure. And that as well is good for flap wheels. You need the back. Needs to sit properly on the back, or else it's going to vibrate. So when you're using up a grinding disc or a flat wheel, it's going to use up a lot faster if it vibrates. So if you can eliminate vibration, your disc will last a lot longer. And so Walter did come out with some grind. Well, they always had grinders, but there's new on the grinders we have now. There's new features that there's a ball bearing on the back. So it eliminates vibration. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the balance the bearings in the back, and anti-vibration handles and stuff like that. So if you can utilize these features, well, you're getting probably twice the disc life. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what about in terms of force? Like on a 1/4-inch disc, you can lean on those things pretty heavy. And like you can stall out a grinder. That's how, if you got a 10-amp grinder, you can stall it out if you push hard enough. Is that bad for the disc? Like it seems like obvious that it should be, but is it actually? Like if you got a thick disc, will you do any damage to the disc pushing on it that hard?
I'm not too sure about that, Max, but I mean, like we've given, like in the field, I've given Walter discs, and I mean, I've never had a 1/4-inch grinding disc break on me. Mm-hmm. And but who's to say that if you press hard on any other brands, if they're going to tough like that? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But I would assume, like most guys that grind know that you don't press hard on it, or else you're going to choke it. You want it to roll at a certain speed for it to be able to work. Yeah. So you don't want to choke it. No. Yeah. And plus, we have some grinders now that they do have a clutch. So instead of kicking or whatever, the clutch will engage and it won't just turn. So I imagine if you would spray it, like if you would press too hard on it, the clutch would engage just on these grinders. So.
What about flapper wheels and sanding discs and that whole world? How much of that percentage of the market is part of your sales? You know, do you see lots of them? I worked in heavy industry, so I didn't get into the light flapper wheels and the sanding discs until I got into like fancier shops for like stainless and TIG work and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Is there a lot
Yeah,
of it in your area?
Yeah, they're a big seller, especially on stainless. I do see it a lot on stainless because we have those 2-in-1. So you'll get the sanding, and then you'll get a piece like a woven material
Mhm.
in between. So it will grind like we have one. It'll grind like a 36 grit, but leave a 60 or 80 finish, and we have stuff like that. But nowadays, these flap wheels, some of them are so performant that they will go against grinding wheels.
Yeah.
I was surprised about that. I when I started with Walter, that's where they showed me. And some of these flat wheels are made with ceramic as well. They're a ceramic recipe, more aggressive, so you get the 36 grit just like a grinding wheel. So yeah, it's and we sell a lot of them.
I have seen some of those flapper discs and that are so aggressive. Like they'll take off a ton of weld quickly, but
Yeah.
they have a short shelf life, right? Like, I mean, and they're not good with heat. Once they get hot, it's like it wrecks the glue on them or something, and they just seem to like fall apart. But that when they're brand new, fresh out of the bag, holy man, do they cut?
Yeah, no, and the ceramic one I'm talking about, it does have a special backing to it that allows for airflow in there for it to cool off, because ceramic will generate a lot of heat, and just making sure that the hub's gonna stay intact while you're grinding with it, right?
Well, some of those flapper discs have a plastic backing, and they'll melt, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I haven't seen one of ours yet to do it, but
Other
only been there
people's.
since March. No, not even. I'm not sure.
I've melted a few. I've melted a few.
Okay.
Yeah, but
One thing that I didn't know when I started with Walter, and I've used flat wheels in the field and stuff, is that the EnduroFlex, the 2-in-1, you can trim the backing. So a lot of people just use the edge, and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna throw this one away in the garbage. It's no good. But you can trim that backing in the back. If it says trim, I'll say, I don't have one here. Anyways, there's a line on there that says trimmable up to here.
yeah.
That means you can trim it. Yeah.
Now, that made me think of something else in terms of the backing nuts. Does it matter if it's a little one or the big one? You know how there's the wide backing nut that's like 2 inches wide? I don't even know if I've seen one of those in a long time, but
they don't make those anymore. No.
Because back in the day, they used to say that they were better because they were like more stable, but they'd be a lot heavier too, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I don't know everything yet, Max. we're gonna have to do this interview back in maybe 5 years.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, but you've answered lots, and that's good because every company that I have on here, I put them through the paces, right? I gotta ask the questions because these are questions that people ask on the job sites, and and people are interested. Now, does Walter have direct selling? Like, can you buy direct from Walter, like from a website or from you, or does everything go through distributors?
Everything goes through distributors. We're not set up to do direct sell. Yeah, we value a lot. I support a lot of outside sales rep and stuff like that in my area, and we deal through them.
And then I don't know if you know, because you're still pretty fresh, but Walter is a large company, right? They're involved around the world. Now,
yep.
What kind of stuff does Walter get involved with in terms of like community work? I've been seeing lots. Like Lindy just announced that they're part of the Net Zero Coalition, and they're finding ways to, be carbon zero as a company, which is a huge step for a company that size. And then you have all the competitors out there getting involved with programs or high schools. What kind of stuff does Walter do?
So I don't know about like Echo and all that stuff. Like, I'm really new, so maybe I'm not the right person to ask that to. But I know like the building, the head office in Montreal, that's a green building. It has certifications for being like a green building, and programs like that. Like you just said, I'm aware. I'm working on that right now for schooling. We do have programs for schools, so they get some promotional items offered to them. So student, and that's it. The safety seminar, we give that. So That's, some companies will charge for a safety seminar, but we give it, it's free of charge. Any school, community college that needs one, they can just contact us. We go there, and we make sure that to give all the safety information like RPM, angles, and what to do and not to do with the grinding and stuff.
And
like
do you
that.
take a whole bunch of discs in and burn them up and let the students try them out and talk to them and
Yeah.
how? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a gauge. So what I do, when you're grinding, it's taking, I don't know, usually 6 amps.
Mm-hmm.
And then I show them with a cutoff wheel how hard by showing them the amps. I'll show them, okay, you need to get to 7, 8 max. And it gives them a good feeling, right? Because guys in the field might take them a year, 2 years before they get comfortable with a grinder.
Mm-hmm.
At least now I can show them, okay, this is the pressure that you need to be using. And then some of them, they'll realize, wow, I don't need to press that hard. And,
Yeah, and it's a funny thing that gets joked about in school, and the students always laugh, but you're dead serious. Proper grinding saves your butt. If you don't grind well, you create more work, and you can make a mess. You can make like a big mess, right? And being a good grinder, comfortable with the grinder, comfortable with the discs and the tools, and knowing what does what, that takes time. It takes time to learn that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm talking about grinders, but it goes for a lot of things like pencil grinders, any tool that. Yeah.
Now, how do people get a hold of Walter if they want to bring them out to their school? I'm sure the chapters that listen to these podcasts, and we have lots of teachers that follow the podcast, they're listening to this right now being like, wow, I didn't know Walter did that. So how did they get a hold of you or not you necessarily, but a Walter rep to come down?
Yeah, they could just go on the website, and we have a 1-800 number on there. They'll contact the calling center, and they'll send me a message, or any rep in which territory the people are. They'll send a message to the rep, and the rep will contact them.
Okay, and
it's that easy.
It's that easy, eh?
Yeah.
Now,
a lot of people don't know that we offer that the safety seminar, right? And we do give out a certificate and everything, and it's good for workplace too. We had some incidents at some workplaces that there was an injury, or somebody got injured because of a grinder, and then they ask us to go in. But I mean, you can be proactive and do the training before something happens, right?
So this is open to businesses too. Is it free for businesses as well?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good.
It gives me an opportunity to show what we have, right, at the same time. So it's benefiting the business and myself as well.
All right, so you guys heard it across Canada. Is this in the U.S. as well, or is this only in Canada?
It should be in the U.S. as well.
All right, so reach out if you're a school, training center, a company, business, and you just want to learn about the Walter products. They'll come down and show you how to do them, and also a little bit of the science behind it. So I have had Walter come out many times at the college. We have a good communication with our local rep, and we actually contact all the abrasives companies and have them all come out, because the students then can see the difference between all of them. And we even tell them, we say, hey, Walter, 3M's coming next week. You better show us the good stuff, and it's good.
I hope you say Walter's the better one.
Well, as a school, we're nonpartisan, but it's good for the students to know. I mean, the reps will say it themselves. They'll do what they got to do. But for people that don't realize that these companies, they do have these programs. Like, people should be reaching out, and they should be finding out what they can get. Because it's good to have these educational sessions.
Yeah, and we also have another program as well, and it's utilized mostly for business. It's called the bucket program. We get in there with a bucket, and for I don't know, 2 weeks or a month, you put whatever grinding wheels that you use into that bucket instead of putting it into the trash. And then we can analyze what companies are using, and we can analyze if the people there are using the disc properly. Sometimes you can see like, oh, he's using a grinding wheel and it's cracking. You should have used, a flap wheel or something like that. We have that as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So a little bit of, like research on the floor, really.
Exactly.
All right. So one of my last questions actually has to do with OH&S. And I don't know if you know this, but this is something that I learned. And I didn't know this. So every time a disc fails, every time a grinding disc fails, breaks, cracks, explodes, whatever it is, whatever brand, you're supposed to report that, to OH&S. And at first I didn't know why. And I was, and so I went to an OH&S meeting, a provincial meeting, and I said, people break discs every day. Just throw them in the garbage. Don't even think about it. And they said, well, how are the companies going to know if there's a problem if you don't report it? So do you know anything about that? Do customers come back to you? Like, I know if I buy a box of Lincoln electrodes and some of the electrodes are garbage, I call Lincoln and say, hey, man, I just got a box. This is garbage.
Yeah.
They ask for the SKU number, the lot number. They come, they pick it up, they take it away to investigate, and they give me a free one, right?
Yeah.
Is it the same process with grinding discs? I buy a box of 50. 3 of the discs break right away. Should I contact and say, hey, something's going on here?
Yeah, so we do get calls of that, and then we redirect that to the product managers, and they do an investigations. Because sometimes, like, not every company is perfect, right? It might happen that at the manufacturer, I don't know, that there's a bad batch or whatever, and they need to know about that. And I don't know what their procedure is on their end, the product managers, but they do take care of that, and they take that pretty seriously, especially for a brand like Walter. I mean, we got a good reputation, and we have to maintain that reputation, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, for the people that are out there running shops and schools, when discs break, don't just toss them. Like, I mean, you may toss them, but take a picture even, and, take the information off the box and let the suppliers know, because that goes towards the R&D of them making a better product, right?
Exactly. And sometimes I've seen that sometimes discs break, and, like, say, for instance, the cutoff wheel. Well, people will try to deburr with it. So it's not really an actual product problem. It's application that resulted in the breakage, right? So that's more common than a bad batch. And but we still do investigations, even though if they break, we send it out to be tested to make sure that's not the case, that it's not a bad batch.
Awesome. Well, Eric, this has been a great interview. I've learned lots, and I know you've only been there since March, but you seem to have absorbed lots. So, you're doing a good job. Anything you want to say to the people before you go about the Walter line and what you do, or even your job?
Yeah, no, basically what I found interesting with Walter, one of our purpose is to help our customers work better by, providing good products, and sometimes combining, instead of using just a grinding wheel, then a flat wheel, we'll try, okay, why don't you just use this one flat wheel? It does 2-in-1, right? We're trying to simplify and make it easier for people to, especially grinders, because it's not always an easy work, right? Welding and grinding and all that stuff. The grinding part, welders don't become welders to grind. Mm-hmm. They become welders to weld, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can make their lives easier, well, that's what we're there for. And sometimes people have issues and issues at the shop. They can give us a call. Maybe we would have some insight in how to help them out. Like, maybe use a different product or use it in a different way. So yeah, don't be shy. Give us a call.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Eric. And I want to finish off the interview with a question for you. You've had a pretty interesting career in terms of, going to university, then going to become a Boilermaker, and then now in this world on the service side, and offering products through Walter. What would you do different if you could go back, right before you started university? I know you touched on it a little bit, but if you could go back, right before you were coming out of high school and you signed up for your first class, what would you do different? What advice would you give yourself?
I would have said go to Alberta. Go to Edmonton for a while. Go to Fort Mac. Back in those days, it was a lot of work.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and for the people that are listening to this that are out east, lots of work in your area now. There's lots of stuff coming up everywhere in Canada. So this is a great time to be in the trades. This is over the next 20 to 30 years. I don't think anyone's going to be out of a job. So everyone get out there and be the best at your trade. Do the best you can.
Yeah.
Awesome, Eric. Thanks for being on the show today.
All right. Thanks.
And for all the people that have been downloading the show, thank you very much for staying with us. We will be here every week with you with another interesting guest from wherever I can dig them up. If you have any recommendations for people that you want to be or see on the show or see interviewed, or even people that want to come back and be back on the show to do a recap, reach out anytime. You can catch us at info@cwbassociation.org. Catch us on Instagram, catch us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I think a soon to be coming TikTok. We're working on it. TikTok's coming soon. And thanks a lot, and stay tuned for the next episode.
We hope you enjoy the show.